So I presume you're here because you watched the ASMR version and now you want to know how exactly these vegan soup dumplings are made. In this video, I'll show you how I make the soup dumplings myself, step by step in the same order. So make sure you pay attention and make some notes if you want to make these beautiful soup dumplings yourself. Otherwise, just chill and enjoy me cooking and talking about dumpling making tips and tricks. In any case, there's also a written recipe on my website. Now, let's start with the dough. Although these dumplings might look quite fancy and unusual, we are not reinventing the wheel here. The dough is a regular steamed dumplings dough, also suitable for pot stickers if you wish. Two interesting things about this dough is that boiling hot water is used to gelatinize and pre-cook the starches and make dough more cohesive. This technique is quite often used in Asian cuisine. It makes the end-cooked dough product more soft without adding any fat to the recipe. And the other interesting thing is that we use colorants to make two colors of dough, which will combine later on in the process. So, how I like to do it, if I'm about to make two or more different doughs, I measure and prep all the ingredients in advance. Have all the bowls, aka mise en place, ready. And then I start with the lightest color of the dough first, for obvious reasons. I also pre-mix the colorants into water for better distribution, basically exactly as you see me doing it here on this video. Once one dough is made, place it in a container or wrap it with a plastic wrap and rest for at least 30 minutes. Another interesting thing about this dough is that there is no salt in the recipe. You see, salt usually helps making the dough more stretchy and strong, but we want our dumplings to be really soft, so no salt today. Don't worry, you won't even notice it when you taste our dumplings. There is plenty of umami seasoning in the filling and sauce. Filling, by the way, is the most exciting part, which is coming up next. Final note on the dough, try not to overwork it. Work just as much to incorporate all the flour. Okay, now, if you don't know how soup dumplings are made, you probably wonder, how did you get the soup inside? And if you know, you might still wonder, how can you do it without using any animal products? Well, quite simple actually. To get the soup inside the dumplings, you need to first transform the soup into a fluid gel. Traditional soup dumplings use gelatin for that. Luckily, there is a plant-based ingredient that works quite the same. This ingredient is agar-agar. So for this recipe, use vegetable stock and agar-agar. If that's the first time you hear about agar-agar, I would strongly recommend you to go and watch my agar-agar ingredient breakdown video, where I explain everything there is to know about this ingredient when it comes to cooking. Meanwhile, it's important to know that agar-agar needs to be hydrated. And to get fully active, we need to bring the mix to boil. Otherwise, it won't set. But really, it's very simple. While the soup is set into gel, we'll start making the rest of the filling. The main part of the filling consists of Beyond Meat. And for legal purposes, I have to say that Beyond Meat did not sponsor this video. We just love to use this in our home cooking. It's an amazing product, it tastes great, and even though I'm personally not a vegan, I prefer to eat Beyond Meat instead of beef or pork meat. Just saying. Anyways, where I live now there is no Beyond Beef, but as far as I'm concerned, the veggie patties are basically the same thing. So I'm just gonna defrost and break them apart. FYI, that's probably too much of Beyond Meat. I realized it too little, too late in the process. For this recipe, which goes for about 20 dumplings, you'll probably need only 1.5 patties, which is like 150 grams, I believe. This plant-based substitute is of course not the only part of the recipe, otherwise it'll be quite boring. I always try to incorporate more intense and complex flavors in my cooking. So first, we'll brunoise an onion and sweat it out on low heat. You can even go as far as to caramelize it if you have time. Then we'll add in some mirin, which is Japanese sweet cooking wine, and reduce it by half. This definitely adds a very unique flavor to our filling. And finally, we'll add in grated zucchini for some freshness. You don't want to overcook it at this point, just add in zucchini and saute only as much as it takes to mix it in the onion base. Done. Take it off the heat and mix with the Beyond Meat. I believe there is no good savory recipe without garlic. So I always like to add 2-3 cloves of confit garlic. It's less pungent. I usually make it in advance, once in 2 weeks, and just store it in the fridge. If you want a recipe of confit garlic, let me know in the comments. I'll send you a link. I'm pretty sure I've already shown this technique on this channel. Apart from garlic, I also like to add some fresh mint leaves for more freshness, but mostly because I had them at home on that day. And they do really add some uniqueness to these dumplings. You tell me if it was worth it if you try to replicate this recipe. For extra crunch and earthiness, we add a little of roasted walnuts. And finally, to give these dumplings more Asian flavor, because so far, let's be honest, there wasn't much of it, I'm adding some soy sauce, Shaoxing cooking wine, I'm pretty sure I've pronounced it incorrectly, sorry for that, sesame oil, and if you're into this kind of thing, you can also add some ginger and chili powder. We are pretty mellow here, so no spice for us. I'm going to add some spice into the sauce instead, to have more control of it. I'm not adding any MSG. If you use Beyond Meat, you don't need it. It already has a perfect umami flavor. But if you use some other kind of plant-based meat replacement, maybe consider it. So that's our filling. We'll add in the gelled soup as well, but a little bit later on in the process. I'll explain why. As a next step, I like to prep all the dough and get it all ready for the assembly. And yes, I do use an Italian pasta machine for making these Chinese dumplings. If you have one, use it. It's a real time saver. Let's not act purist here. Let's be more realistic with our time. If you have a helper, and if you're not making this recipe all by yourself, use your helper and the rolling pin. Your dough will be a little more airy. So, for our multicolored dough, I roll out both doughs and cut out circles of 2 different sizes with a cookie cutter. Once this is done, I use a pastry brush to make the larger dough circle slightly wet and place a smaller dough circle on top, right in the middle, and push it in with the rolling pin very lightly, just so it sticks. Then I use a pasta machine again to roll it out, evenly rotating between the rolls for the best results. Dough will be quite sticky now, so don't spare the flour to help you out. Once all the colorful dough is rolled out, make sure it's not sticky. Cover it with a dry kitchen towel and let's finish the filling before we start the assembly. To finish the filling, break up the soup gel to medium pieces and mix it in the main filling. That's it, done. The reason why we haven't done it earlier is that the longer it sits inside the rest of the filling, the more it may leak out, especially if you've been very rough when mixing it in. So just in case, I'd recommend it to mix it in just before the assembly. For the assembly, I just recommend you to follow the demo as you see in this video. We've also made a separate short video for the assembly alone. If you follow me on Instagram or now on TikTok, you might already have seen it. Just save it and use it wherever you want to make these dumplings again. I know there are so many dumplings assembly techniques, it's hard to remember them all by heart. So what I like to do, to create a folder on my social media, save all the techniques I'm interested in there. Very convenient, highly recommend, feel free to do the same. The most important part in this dumpling assembly, just like in all the other dumpling assemblies, is not to overfill it. I know, groundbreaking. And also it's important here to have the dough moderately dry. You kind of wanted to have it both dry and slightly wet, so it does stick where you want it to stick and not to stick in all the other instances, if that makes sense. I trust you'll get just the right technique and balance. But if you're struggling at this point, just go for the dry. Add more flour if you need, and at the points of flower petals attachment, just use a little extra water. It is better to have it too dry than too wet. Wet equals mess. But, actually, fun fact. The first time I made these dumplings myself, I struggled a bit with this. And in the act of pure desperation and anger, I came up with a new dumpling shape. So, you know what they say. Even in the darkest times, never give up. Always try to make the best out of the situation. You might end up with something even better than you've originally hoped for. And that, kids, has been the moral of this culinary story. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're still here, still listening to me, thank you. I know all the YouTubers say this all the time, but for real, it really means a lot for us to have people who actually watch our videos until the very end. We put so much time and effort and soul into these videos. One of my goals in 2022 is to become a better storyteller. So I'm planning to incorporate little stories into each one of the new videos that would unfold either during the whole video or towards the end. So if you're hearing this, comment down below and team, so you and I will know who are the OG cooks here. Anyways, what I was really trying to say, thank you for watching the whole video. It's not over yet, so don't switch off. And for all my culinary heroes out there, here's a quick modern plating idea. The foam inside the siphon is a regular sauce used for dumplings, with addition of guar gum. Guar gum thickens the sauce and stabilizes the foam. And that's it for today, guys. May the culinary gods bless you. I love you.